Good evening, everyone. I trust that you're all in fair spirits today. Last time we ended things a little bit chaotically. I was brutally arrested and dragged to the police station by my feet.
No, it's just a photo. You can't arrest someone for a photo.
Fortunately enough, the local judge simply put me on house arrest, and I had to face 0 prison time. The only thing about that, and the only slight caveat, is that you need a house to be arrested in, so I had to get a little bit creative. But anyways, check out the new digs. And my fancy robe, fancy pipe, we're doing well today. And I'd like to tell you all about something that, been weighing on my mind recently. You guys have heard of Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, right? 40 years in the making, $120 million spent, pure passion project. I didn't think it was very good. That being said, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a film I would never hesitate to criticize, yet I would also never claim to hate. I don't know, man. Even though Francis Ford Coppola is kind of a weird freak now, I find it so difficult to hate something so clearly driven by blind, obsessive passion. Hate in particular is a very strong emotion to put towards a film, you know? People dislike films all the time. I dislike my fair share as well. But in my view, hate is something different. Hate is to actively detest the existence of something. A film just being poorly made doesn't warrant that kind of anger, in my opinion. You know, you look online and you see a handful of people who like to play up this kind of exaggerated anger, you know, the nostalgic critics, the angry nerds. You look behind the curtain on those guys, and what you end up seeing is a far more mellow and nuanced opinion towards something that's, while not very well made, ultimately doesn't matter all that much in the grander scheme of things. With all that being said, you can rest easy knowing exactly what I mean when I tell you that I fucking hate Joe and Anthony Russo's The Electric State. Just white-hot, bubbling, frothing hatred. I'll get into why I feel this way in due time, but I really want to hammer home just how much I detest this fucking movie, and just how visceral the initial watching experience was for me. This is a printout of my initial Letterboxd review of this film. Big Nickel 04 is my account, follow if you want to, I don't really care either way. As you can see, I had a lot to say. And judging by the edit near the bottom, this is a review that I initially wrote in its entirety in one sitting, and then stewed on it, and then came back to it later on the day so I could continue hating on it full force. I won't force you to sit through this entire review, but what I will do is read what little Aiden had to say about this film when he first watched it on the 16th of March, 2025. I had to raise my rating for Freddy Got Fingered so I could rate this lower. This film is a soulless, toothless, empty crock of shit. Slop doesn't even begin to describe this. If Freddy Got Fingered was a joke at the audience's expense, this film is a direct insult, a scathing load of spit on your face that you're supposed to clap at because they think you're just that fucking stupid. Colorful. But why this film? Why does this particular piece of media warrant such blind anger? Give me a few minutes, I'll try to explain the best I can. Or don't. I'm sure that there are better things to do with your time. Now, before The Electric State was a movie on Netflix, it was a book written and illustrated by one Simon Stalenhag. Now, even if you haven't read the book, you've probably seen at least one or two of the illustrations somewhere on the internet. It had a particular style of dystopian scale that inspired a lot of very similar artists to follow up with their own takes on it. Now, the story itself was something different entirely, but we'll get to that later. Plans to adapt the book into a film were officially announced in 2017 when the Russo brothers acquired the rights, citing none other than Andy Muschietti as the director. Now you must be thinking, Andy Muschietti? The director behind the single best film of 2023, The Flash?
Wait, he's bad, man?
Yeah. Who else? But, he was better known at the time for his work on the It remake, which begs the question if they were actually intending to follow the book's original bleaker and more depressing tone before changing it into what we got. Either way, the director role ended up going to the Russos anyways, and distribution rights were tossed between studio to studio before eventually limply flopping onto Netflix in 2022, where it would eventually be released. I don't know if it can be attributed to Netflix thinking that this was going to be their next big hit, or if it's just a Russo thing considering their track record, but this film is recorded as having one of the highest budgets for any film ever. And I don't care if you don't believe me, because I'm going to show you anyways. Oh, is this laptop dead? Now you can look this up, it's readily available on Wikipedia. I just want to show you firsthand, you look at this, there it is. Nestled comfortably between that Captain Marvel sequel that nobody watched and Avengers fucking Infinity War. Now figures like that get you thinking, like, what could possibly be in this film to warrant such a budget? I mean, like, it could just be the star-studded cast, CGI costs, and a long, long timeline of production issues. But, like, what if it's more? Like, you've seen the illustrations. Like, what if they actually are bringing that to life? Shit, dude. Like, look at that scale. Like, honestly, looking at that, like, now I'm kind of excited to see if they can pull this off. Yeah, something went wrong there. But, I don't know, it's hard to blame them. I mean, when's the last time that the Russo brothers departed from the MCU to make a massive piece of mediocre shit? All jokes aside, this film is bad for a multitude of reasons. So let's skip the little history lesson and dig into the slimy carcass of this fucked up microwave ham. First of all, this film has no plot. Oh, Aiden, but clearly these clips show events transpiring in linear order, communicating some kind of evolving narrative. You dumb fuck. That's exactly what Big Joe wants you to believe. He wants you to believe that this is a film about artificial intelligence evolving and fighting for equality among humans. That this has even an octodecillionth of anything resembling actual depth. But he is playing you for a fucking fool. Everything about this film that might stand out, you know, the visuals, the setting, the source material, it's nothing but a big trench coat covering a human totem pole of other better films hastily stitched together into this film's narrative. Lucky for those of you fortunate enough to have not seen this film, I wrote all of them down. A Robot Uprising. Robots as an allegory for real-world minorities. Socially awkward, autistic-coded child savant who gets kidnapped for his intelligence. A teenage main character living with abusive step-parents that they escape to begin their journey. Symbolizing social media by having people literally plugged into computers. Haven't heard that one before. Marketable sidekick that speaks in catchphrases. Evil corporation as the main character, also haven't heard that one before. Morally dubious rogue with a heart of gold who initially joins the quest for selfish reasons but later finds purpose in helping his friends. The other easily marketable sidekick character that speaks in quips that we can isolate and put in the trailers. Freedom fighters that initially distrust the protagonists due to past betrayals but eventually join their side to fight their common enemy. Antagonists with a misguided moral code that joins the protagonist's side in the face of a larger threat. The scientist working for the evil company that's actually disillusioned and a good guy working against them. The big fat Avengers Endgame battle near the end. An evil CEO is arrested at the end because God forbid an evil person actually die. The heroic self-sacrifice that's immediately undercut because the kids shouldn't have to consider death as an actual concept in film. And metric fuck tons of unnecessary, ill-fitting needle drops because we really want to do a Guardians of the Galaxy. That's it. That's the story. Matter of fact, that's pretty much all of this movie is. It's barely even the electric state. It's fucking champions of ChatGPT. The whole AI civil rights thing is something I find particularly sinister, especially considering the fact that it was released during an era where more and more studios are dipping their toes into using it to replace artists. Studios like Netflix, by the way. Did I mention that this film uses AI to replace people's voices? Yeah, Joe, something any 10-year-old can do after watching a TikTok video. Really, the one thing to get me on board is letting me know exactly just how lazy you were being when you were using it. This coinciding with a conveniently timed interview with the brothers about how everyone just doesn't understand why AI is actually great for Hollywood just puts a bad taste in my mouth. You know, the AIs are presented as these innocent victims who just want to live alongside humans but are oppressed by their evil bigotry, and like, does anyone feel weird about this message coinciding with this interview, coinciding with a film released for children? It feels devious, like the Russos think they're being really sneaky by putting this overtly pro-AI message in a film intended for an audience too immature to ever criticize it. There's also a pretty substantial departure from the source material that hammers this point home further. but I'm going to save that for later in the video. So all I'm going to say now is that making your Martin Luther King Jr. equivalent a massive, big fat fucking advertisement for Mr. Peanut Peanuts and Planters products is certainly a decision. Now, I understand that a lot of this comes off as nitpicking. You know, a film doesn't have to be 100% perfect to justify its own existence, and the whole indoctrinating kids into being more accepting of AI thing is pretty speculative. So I have a solution, one that doesn't force me to give this film the benefit of the doubt. I have this remote. Now with this remote, every time I say something that sounds or may come off as nitpicking, I'm going to press this button. And what this button is going to do is it's going to throw up just how many times you could have made a beloved movie with this film's budget. Adjusted for inflation, of course. So, that being said, you know, I've been on my little tangent, so let's give this a test drive. Jesus fucking Christ. Plot isn't everything, though. I mean, if it was, I would be a book reviewer. And I ain't no fucking book reviewer, alright? I'm a man. I don't know how to read. Fortunately, for this film, everything else is just kinda bad. When it comes to performances, I really don't want to lay all the blame on the actors. I'm sure they're fine people, and, you know, acting is just as much about taking as it is giving. You need good material for good performances. That being said, man, they did not give. Like, go, girl. Give us nothing. The best way that I can describe this is that all of them are acting as if they know exactly the kind of quality of film they're making. Millie Bobby Brown's performance in particular stands out to me, not for good reason at all. Like, she's fine in Stranger Things, as far as I remember, but she's just wholly uninterested in this film. Like, she does not give any energy at all.
It's possible our consciousness could transcend physical boundaries.
Cool. I really don't care about what you would advise. You think you're building something special here? You're just like everyone out there.
Barring that, her character just does not seem written with her in mind. Completely unlike Chris Pratt's character, who is so clearly and blatantly written with him in mind that it almost made my fucking hernia pop. I'm not joking when I say that this film was so blatant and uncaring in its mimicry of Guardians of the Galaxy that it briefly shone a crack through the ozone layer protecting Chris Pratt's mind from sentient thought. Listen to this. I kind of like to think, hopefully, that's like every character I ever play though in this tone. When it's a big commercial tone like this, you're gonna get a sliding doors version of the character I like to play. There's my character talking to an animated character through the course of it, so I guess even now, just in this interview, I'm just noticing that there are similarities. I'll be honest, I didn't even realize that Chris Pratt was capable of this kind of introspection. I just kind of always assumed that he had like the brain of a golden retriever up there. Still, it is not a good sign for the writers when even the actors are noticing how derivative your shit is. Acting aside, everything else is just kind of passable, you know, mid, as the kids say. The visual effects look like visual effects, but they're alright. You know, the robots look pretty good, and the whole film benefits very clearly from the inspiration taken from Stalinhog's illustrations. When it's being used, that is. Like, half of the film takes place in a barren desert without any of the cool shit from the book, and the other half takes place in a shithole mall, and they look like a barren desert and a shithole mall. Just for reference, the final act of this film takes place in a big gray fucking parking lot, so it's pretty clear that they didn't use Stalinhog's work as anything other than just a list of images to reference. The audio front isn't anything to write home about either. I can't think of a single interesting bit from the film's score other than the dozens and dozens of shitty needle drops peppered throughout the film to give the appearance of having an actual style. I've already been over the James Gunn mimicry, so it's kind of a dead horse at this point, but it legitimately feels like a challenge by the Russos to see how much money they can blow just to kill the film's atmosphere. Like, do we really need a sad, sappy acoustic cover of Wonderwall by Oasis to finish the film? Or fucking I Fought the Law by The Clash to introduce a character who rebels against authority? Wow. There's no real standout shots or cinematography. The film's gritty browns and grays don't gel well with its tone. and the humor is unoriginal to an extent where you can predict almost any joke before it even happens. Take this scene, for example.
Stay calm. Stay calm. Scavs are still machines. They're rational.
Do you think the punchline to this joke is A, the opposite of what he says happens, B, A, C, B, or D, I'm gonna fucking shoot myself?
Open those damn doors!
I'll give it this. If this were the first film you have ever seen in your entire life, you'd probably think that this was a pretty funny watch. Granted, if it were your second movie you'd ever seen in your life, you'd be setting the fucking theater on fire, but, you know, credit's where it's due. All that being said, like, what gives? Like, I can see it's clearly a bad film based on a book, but I don't see what warrants this anger, right? Like, 90% of these bad movies you look at, there's at least some kind of silver lining or aspect of the film where you can see the passion and the talent of the people working on it. Even if the finished product isn't that great, you can see that they were legitimately trying to make something of quality. There is no passion here. Not in the direction, not in the acting, not in the story, not in the music. You know, it sounds ridiculous for me to say it like this, but I would have enjoyed this film if it were worse. At least then I would have been able to derive some joy in laughing at how bad the film is. Something like Megalopolis isn't good by any means, but it's unique, it's distinct, it has a distinct voice, it has, like, proper decisions made with intent behind them that make repeat viewings incredibly entertaining. The Electric State is nothing. It's not nearly good or bad enough to warrant any kind of viewing, let alone the amount of energy that I'm even putting into thinking about it right now. That's what really frustrates me, you know? You get a budget like this, and this is what you make. You don't try. You know, guys, let's just make something fun. Let's just make something you can turn your brain off viewing. You know, we're spending the national annual GDP of Kenya on this fucking film, but you know, it's for kids, it's for families. It doesn't have to be good. We can just make it entertaining with bright colors, and that'll be enough. I get what you're saying. I really do. I really understand it. But it's hurting your soul. It's hurting my soul just thinking about it. That's why I had to make a video about this in the first place. Just to comment on how deeply offended I am by this film and the mentality that allows the creation of these kinds of films. You know, to try is to be alive. Are you alive? Is that even a question I have to ask? Are you indistinguishable from any of the AIs that you're proposing replace actual talent within the industry? None of that would normally justify making a video like this, though. There is a major aspect of this film that I've been willfully avoiding. You want to know why I'm making a video like this in the first place? Why I had to come back to my original review later in the day to add even more to it? Why I had to lower the initial rating from 2 out of 5 stars to half of a single star? Because I read the book that this film was based off of. The Electric State is a book about a teenage girl named Michelle traveling across a dystopian, barely populated America to find something. We don't know much at the beginning of the story. It's largely drip-fed to us throughout her trip, hinting at much larger things at play in the background. All we know is that this girl needs to get to the other side of the country. It's fairly dangerous, and she's accompanied by this strangely sentient, mute robot named Skip. Slowly, we learn about the war, the invention of the Neurocaster, its commercialization, the slow degradation of the country brought on by a population of comatose, endlessly stimulated zombies controlled by a strange technological hive mind. All the while, we learn more about Michelle, memories from a world long past, relationships torn apart, strange omens of the Neurocaster's impact. This narrative is accompanied by these just beautiful illustrations done by Stalenhag. And I mean, just look at some of these. Other than that, though, it's largely the book, and I mean that in the most positive way I can. It's melancholic, it's bleak, it's reflective, and its ending hits you like a goddamn truck. Skip to this point if you're still curious and want to read it for yourself. I wholeheartedly recommend it. Near the end of the book, we finally learn about Michelle's brother. More plainly, how he was taken by social services when she was young, how he's apparently special and has some kind of special ability that the corporation behind the Neurocaster wants. She also confirms that the robot that's been accompanying her throughout this journey has been controlled by him, giving her directions to help her find him. Michelle finally makes it to her destination, a small, decrepit house. It seems pretty ordinary from what we've seen so far, until she finally finds him. Without thinking, I threw myself down and embraced the emaciated boy on the bed. I turned his head gently, and there, behind his ear and just below the edge of the caster, I found it. The long, shining scar from the surgery. I sat there for a while and just held his hand. Skip was 6 years old when I saw him leave Kingston in the back seat of the social services car, and he was 14 when I lifted him out of the bed at 2139 Mill Road in Point Linden. I don't have the slightest idea what he'd been through in between. His body weighed almost nothing. It felt like the Neurocaster was the heaviest part. I guess he should have been dead. There's no way to tell how long he'd been lying there. Michelle brings her brother out of the house with her, carrying with her a painful decision. Skip could die if she removes the Neurocaster, but what he is now can barely be considered living. The last few pages have nothing left to say, instead allowing us to ruminate on the final images of the Neurocaster on the beach, followed by the gentle waves of the ocean. Now, after hearing all that, after seeing all those images and, reading the actual contents of the story, I'm sure that there's just one question going through your mind, one single heartfelt inquiry lying in the core of your soul. Where the fuck is Mr. Peanut? You know what really pisses me off about this film? What properly, brings my piss from a low simmer to a bright frothing boil? This film could have been good. Matter of fact, it could have been fantastic. You take a story with this kind of imagery, this kind of subtext, with a tone more suitable to something like The Last of Us than anything resembling a family picture, and you turn it into this.
She said put on your caster.
Oh, sorry, I have a condition where I can only live in reality. Sucks, but you go right ahead.
They could have done the kind of introspective, lonely future aesthetic type shit that everyone was injecting into their fucking veins only a few years ago. But instead, you know what they decided? They decided, you know what would be easier? If we just didn't give a shit. Fuck all that other stuff, the dangers of escapism, the slow death of society, machine cults controlled by a technological hive mind seemingly discovered out of complete nowhere, Michelle's family, her history, all the relationships torn by the slow death of civilization. Fuck all that. Robots. This image has a robot, so it's about robots. I want to make a story about robots. I like AI though, so let's also make it about how the new technology is misunderstood and how you're kind of a bad person for not liking it. Except for this technology, right? This technology is bad. This technology is bad because, Facebook. But this technology, beautiful, wonderful. 2 smooches, both cheeks. And while we're at it, does the entire country have to be destroyed? Does it have to be the whole place? Can't it just be one small area that's actually destroyed and the rest is just kind of charmingly Section 8 householdy? Does Michelle have to go on the trip by herself? I mean, that's kind of a bummer, right? Let me spruce this up a little bit. Let me add some of my favorite Marvel characters in there. Joey baby, we're on a fucking roll now. Okay, and get this, and instead of saving her brother, well, she does save her brother, but she's also stopping the evil corporation that started all this and invented Facebook and whatever. And at the end, she's gonna have a big speech, and everybody that was under the control of fucking evil Facebook is gonna take the headsets off. They're gonna realize, oh man, Millie Bobby Brown is fucking correct, dude. We gotta get our lives back on track. And you know what the best part is? The best part, okay. All that ambiguity at the end of the book where you're not actually sure what happened? Okay, we get rid of it, okay? Michelle's brother is dead, except No, he fucking isn't, because now he gets to live on as a cool fucking robot for the rest of his life. Isn't that cool? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that a fucking awesome ass happy ending? Unambiguously happy, right? Robot forever. This film pains me to think about. All that possibility, all that potential for a truly unique, visually stunning, emotional journey bastardized. Not out of misguided passion, but out of just complete cynicism and prioritization of market value and profit. I don't know what else I have to say about this film other than I hope it legitimately disappears. I am an anti-preservationist when it comes to this film. I pray to God it never comes to physical, but if it does, I'm stealing some fucking terraforming equipment and filling a landfill with these fucking things. It's shit, it's piss, it's fuck, it's ass, it's cunt, it's any pejorative that I can use outside of actual slurs. And I don't like it that much. That's why I had to make this video in the first place. I had to purge some of this excess emotion that I was feeling about this film. So with that being said, if you're feeling some of that hatred that I was describing in this film now, I'm very sorry that I've put that burden onto you, but also I'm not sorry because, like, fuck this movie. There's something to be said about bad art made with passion, with a genuine intent to create something good, and how art without passion, art made entirely without inspiration, can barely be considered art at all, in my opinion. Also, it sucks poop. For what it's worth, I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me rant about something I hate for however long this video ends up being. You know, I do have some videos coming down the pipeline very similar to the one about the future. Those I'm still working on. They'll be out soon enough. But, you know, if you like something like this, just make it known, you know? I understand it's a bit of a cop-out with these videos, but apparently it legitimately works. So like if you liked it. Also, don't be scared to share any feedback you might have in the comments, whether it be, you know, if you like this kind of content or if I'm resemble a homosexual and should kill myself. Either or, you know, it's all welcome in the name of free speech. So, you know, subscribe if you want to see more flapping action from these old gums of mine. And with that being said, I'll see you guys later.
What the fuck are you doing in my house?
Oh shit! Ah! Fuck! Ah! Oh god! Oh shit! I'll see you guys later. God damn it! I gotta go.